what's up. As I'm throwing punches with a controller in my hand. That makes absolutely no sense. I just got my ass whooped. Welcome to That's What's Up. It's your boy, Mr. Vaughn, with my two violent co-hosts that'll beat your ass in a second. Daniel Lee, independent graphic designer and illustrator. Hey, Boogie. Aaron Larson, independent game designer. And it's your host, Mr. Vaughn. And today we're discussing best fights. Best fights in movies.
See, I didn't phase it. That's why I got my Deadpool shirt on.
Best fights in movies, and we're gonna do this in two different segments: best fight scenes in movies, and best action scenes in movies. So we're starting with best fights, which we're gonna categorize as one or more participants, including weapons up to swords and knives, no guns,
and not weapons of mass destruction.
So no explosions, only pointy swords and knives and shit like that. So best fight scenes. What do you guys describe as some of your favorite and best fight scenes in the movie? As we're going to be playing random ones throughout the course, but let's talk about some of your favorites.
I mean, I'll go right off the bat and just say, I think one of the best fight scenes from a book or a movie is the battle between Hector and Achilles and Troy. I think that was awesome. It was emotional. It showed how. I really liked their take on it. Because, when I first read the Iliad in school, I always kind of pictured Achilles as being this big, strong, huge dude. And yet, in this, they show that he actually, they portrayed him as having, a separate fighting style.
Yeah.
Like, his own fighting style that was unorthodox. And it really
it's still
keeps you
very
on your
aggressive.
toes. Yeah, very aggressive.
Unorthodox, but still very aggressive as far as his fighting style.
Very trained.
Dan, speak on this, please. Because I have...
Before volunteers.
Well,
yeah.
First of all, I'm in absolute agreement with Aaron's choice. I'm hard-pressed to think of another fight scene that includes, weapon-on-weapon fight that's better. Maybe like some Hong Kong flicks, but for this type of movie, which this like Troy and 300 and Gladiator and Braveheart, that's kind of my shit. I love those kind of movies.
Those sword and sandal type movies.
Right,
blood and sand.
Historical fiction.
Right.
It's great stuff. So yeah.
It's so funny watching this because I remember reading the book and I was so bored in school. I was like, gosh, this is like the longest story ever.
This just goes to prove movies are more entertaining than books.
Hey, nonetheless though, after watching it, and I remembered it, it made me want to go back and read it again. Because, and maybe it's just that old style of how they wrote it, and that really just kind of, at least at the time, when you're 16, you're like, oh, this is boring. All I want to do is flirt with chicks and play sports.
Are there any titties in this book? Then I don't want to read it.
This is not a picture book or a pop-up.
Dude, if they had pop-up books with titties in them, can you imagine how awesome that would be? Video for another day.
Yeah. It wasn't even a follow along while I read aloud to
Once again, nothing to do with the story, but
it's just random thoughts in Vaughn's brain.
Right.
You're all invited. But come at your own risk.
No. This fight scene was well choreographed.
So well choreographed.
Completely believable, and really seamless too.
You know what I'm going to give them a lot of credit for? Is not only because you obviously knew they're going to build up Achilles as an awesome. They did an awesome job of building up Hector as a larger-than-life warrior. Even though they still did a good job of developing the differences in why they fight. And Hector was like the family man. Mm-hmm. Achilles was all about glory and death and battle and all that. But they still did an awesome job of, like you talked about in the extended version, they did a little more of Ajax. And they let you know how big of a deal it was when Hector killed Ajax.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, the extended version is really worth watching. If you haven't seen it, you should get it. But, the beach scene, when they storm the beach and Ajax is just out there just destroying
with the big war hammer.
Yeah.
I love it. That's awesome.
But again, that's portrayed as being this big dude, where both Hector and Achilles are a little bit smaller. They're a little bit more agile.
Yeah.
They're a little bit more trained, and I think they did a good job, more or less, not showing so much, how tough Hector was, but how tough he was to their army.
Yeah.
You know, he was
Yeah.
pivotal to their army.
Right.
Yeah.
Pivotal. He was by far the best. They knew he was the best. And then comes along Achilles here, and Achilles is just like something completely different.
Not only is he not, I'm not impressed by the level. I mean, let's just talk about the level of disrespect that Achilles shows Hector.
You mean when he drags his body off?
Oh my goodness!
You know?
I'm getting teary-eyed just thinking about it.
Poor Peter O'Toole.
Poor,
Yeah.
poor everyone who had to watch this. If
Right.
I'm on the gates of Troy, he would have got fucking speared. The minute you're just gonna drag our champion behind your cart, no respect.
What was messed up is that he knew he wasn't going to make it. He knew before he went into battle. He said,
knew
I'm
it.
not coming back.
He says goodbye to all his
Shit hits
kids.
the fan, leave.
I mean, what makes it even worse is while he's trying to have his little tender moment saying goodbye to his wife and kids, what do you hear? You hear Achilles outside the walls. Hector! Get your bitch ass out here!
Seriously.
I mean, it was deplorable.
Yeah,
And some of the best cinema ever.
700 BC being called out.
After Hector got killed, they're like in an utter state of shock. I mean, look at the amount of soldiers up there. I would have given the order to let arrows
Let
loose
the arrows
at
loose.
this point.
Have a
Arrows
hero
just
moment,
fly.
right?
Because you're not
For
dragging
real.
him
You're
through
not just
the
gonna
dirt.
disrespect. Okay, we were all following by the rules until you disrespect. I mean, look at Priam just breaks down. He just breaks down. I mean, that is an epic scene. Way to go. I'm just.
The initial fight scene where you really see Achilles and how he scares the other army and when he fights with the dude named Boagrius,
Yeah.
you know, that was a cool fight scene.
Yes.
I mean, that was epic.
He commands respect.
That could have been arguably like the best scene in the movie. Some people think it is, but when you see that one, it
When
just
you see that Troy is filled with not only great battle scenes, fight scenes, but great action scenes too. Because the attack on the first attack on Troy after they take the beach is an epic scene. That's where Ajax gets killed. I mean, that's an epic scene. Let's move on to another epic fight scene.
300.
This crosses the line between action scene and fight scene, but it classifies as a fight scene because it is man on man, man on many men.
And one of the things I
Pause,
think
no
that
homo.
makes this so good is the fact that it's how it's shot.
Yeah. Shouts out to Zack Snyder.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, like,
once
not
again,
worthy.
yeah.
Not worthy.
But you get such a sense of how tough the Spartans were. I mean, the form, they all move in one, in unison.
No, there was no distinction. To live was to be a warrior. They were a warrior culture.
Yeah.
See, and wasn't Achilles a descendant of the Spartans? Or was that before? I can't remember the timeline.
Well, they all fought for Greece.
Right.
They fought for Greece. Because so.
And honestly, I mean, shouts out to Michael Fassbender in this. You know.
One of his early roles.
Yeah.
It's true.
That's one of the best lines too. You know, our arrows will block out the sky. Then we'll fight in the shade. Yeah, great line.
That's such a smart ass thing to
Right?
say too.
It's such a fun.
That along with it's no longer yours.
Right?
The dude's arm, you know.
And how messed up was it? They were building their wall with their bodies.
No, I love it.
Man,
Spartans, lay down your spears.
Well, you know, I mean, the thing is, you've got people that are enslaved and forced to fight for you versus
people are fighting for freedom.
Which we talked about. We talked about that when we were. It's crazy because we talked about that when we were comparing the differences between Bronn and the Hound in Game of Thrones. How Bronn was a sellsword. How they're both killers. You know what I'm saying? Two sides of the same coin. They're both killers, but Bronn is a free man, a sellsword, while the Hound is in service to somebody.
One fights for his own
Yeah,
cause, the other
one
fights
fights-
because he's told to.
Yeah. And so you really, while the Spartans were just, I mean, that's all they know is to fight.
You take any war like that. I mean, if you talk about Braveheart, it's the same thing with that.
Yeah.
You know, you got all these people fighting for their freedom, and other people they're fighting because they're told to. And it's not
Yeah.
as much fun. I mean, not that I know because I haven't died, but I'm sure it's not as much fun to die when you don't even care about the cause.
right.
Yeah.
You know.
I mean, live for something, die for anything.
Yep. Live for something.
Die for
Don't die.
something, yeah.
Just don't die for nothing.
Just don't die for nothing.
But it's really when you've got your spirit involved in
Yeah.
whatever it is, you know. Yeah, these Persians were just like cannon fodder.
Yeah, just
you know?
can't. They didn't know what they were up against. They just didn't know what they were up against. Another movie that I wanna bring up that has as far as an awesome fight scene is Kiss of the Dragon with Jet Li. It has multiple awesome fight scenes, but the two that I'm going to talk about is when he rolls up into the school where the guys are all fighting in the class.
Yeah, that is an awesome scene, and honestly, I liked Jet Li before, but this one sold it for me, and I'm surprised that this movie didn't do better. But maybe it was just because it was like purely an action.
I mean, it was a hard R. It was a hard R-rated movie. I mean, it did fairly well. It wasn't a huge blockbuster or anything, but I mean, it's a good movie. It's a great action movie. I mean, and this is bringing you up into the more modern, because you said before with Troy and 300, we're talking sorry, but this is a modern day action movie with an awesome fight scene. It seems like that's something that's a little lost in a lot of action movies nowadays. Are so caught up with big explosions and fights.
Well, but we did have the era of the action star,
Yes.
and you had your Van Dammes and your Seagals and your Chuck
Right.
Norrises, all these martial arts action stars. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I mean, we went there, and to some extent we're kind of there, but I don't think it's ever going to come back.
No, I don't
Hard
think
like
so.
it
Yeah.
used to be.
I agree. I don't think so.
And honestly, I think that we kind of got burnt out on it. I mean, I think the last big action star that we've seen that was in recent was the Ong Bak series with Tony Jaa.
With Tony Jaa.
He was another one that was, and I think that was more like, did that little dude just jump a car? Just little things like that are impressive. And it makes you question. You're like, did he really do that? And then you realize, yeah, he really did do that.
And this is the thing, but when you watch a scene like this with a guy like Jet Li, who's really, who is a very, very well-trained and legitimate martial artist.
He's vicious, too.
He's
just vicious.
When I was reading up on his training, he started training with weapons at like the age of 10.
He's a little ninja. But that's the thing, though. And you take the styles, say, take somebody like Jackie Chan. It's cool to see Jackie Chan because Jackie Chan, even though I wouldn't want to put a weapon in his hand, he can pretty much turn anything into a weapon.
Yeah.
Which made that so cool.
Which made for some awesome fight scenes in movies like we were talking about, like Rumble in the Bronx.
Right.
That was the coolest aspect, to see him pick up the different, like the bottle scene and the stuff like that. Here's my man Tony Jaa. In The Protect. I
think as far as Jackie Chan goes, and Jet Li, I think the things that I really like about them, and even in comparison to Tony Jaa, Tony Jaa is more of like a Muay Thai kickboxer.
Yeah.
So his movements aren't as quick. Where both Jackie Chan and Jet Li, they are so quick.
Yeah.
It's like, wow, that's impressive. That not only did he kick that dude in his shin, his ankle, up to his chin, but he stole his weapon and called his girlfriend in the meantime.
Not to get too heavily into talking about it from a martial arts standpoint, but the Chinese martial arts are way more dynamic than most other martial arts.
As compared to the Japanese or Korean or something like that.
Yeah, and the Tony Jaa, it's unfortunate that I think if this dude was around back in the '80s, he would have just
it would have been huge, right?
Yeah.
I would have much preferred seeing kickboxer with him than Jean-Claude. No offense to Jean-Claude, because honestly, dude, Expendables 2, awesome job.
But what was his name in that? Villian? His name in the movie was basically Villain.
All I know, man, is that when he kicked that big ass sword or that big ass
knife into the dude's chest.
The machete into the dude's chest, I was like, dude, you're the coldest villain ever right now.
And
plus he's French too. French make the best villains.
They do make the best villains. The thing with Tony Jaa that I do like is his ability to display the breaking bone, and his fights seem really authentic.
Except for when he's fighting Eddie here from Tekken.
The capoeira
this is such a good fight.
As cool as I think capoeira is, the only time I ever thought it was really cool is when I saw Brandon Lee do it.
Which is what we gotta bring up Brandon Lee. We can't leave out this entire segment without bringing up Brandon Lee.
Hey.
I know.
Rest in peace, man.
Let alone his dad.
Yeah. Let alone his.
Who laid the groundwork for
all fighting.
Right.
But Brandon Lee, he did Rapid Fire and The Crow, two very underrated action movies.
I agree.
And Rapid Fire, and we talked about it when we were previewing footage that we were watching. We talked about it earlier, how the different styles of fighting, and a lot of it's something. There's so many variables you take into account. The 80s, the 90s, how they were shooting action then. They didn't,
the fighting choreography.
Yeah.
It's a big difference.
It is a big difference. It is a big difference. As the Crows
How fitting was that? Seriously,
I mean, man,
right?
we don't plan this shit, people.
It just happened.
It just
This is live.
That's gonna wrap up.
The final fight scene of Rapid Fire. Watch it.
Watch it. You'll see a little of the clip that we're playing. We didn't get a chance to play them all. But this is going to wrap up this first segment as far as best fights. This is another topic that I feel like we're going to have to come and readdress again.
It's probably right.
Because, I mean, I love it. These 15-minute segments fly by really fast, gentlemen.
There's like at least 5 or 6 other movies we'd like to reference
Absolutely.
for sure.
Times 10.
So make sure you keep it locked to That's What's Up. Until next time, it's your boy, Mr. Vaughn, Aaron Larson, Daniel Lee. Make sure you subscribe to the channel. Follow all of us on all the social media sites. You know how we do in this crazy world we live in. Until next time, that's what's up, y'all. Peace.